Hello beautiful people! Welcome to my channel. Today we are making my favorite beverage, kombucha. I am going to just assume you already know what kombucha is. I'm not going to bore you with what a SCOBY is, the health benefits of kombucha, what kombucha actually is, because every single video about kombucha spends like 5 minutes explaining all of that, and I just want to get into how you actually make the kombucha. So without further ado, let's start the video. So really quickly before we get into the making of it, this book, The Big Book of Kombucha, talks all about like how to flavor it, how to make it with other types of tea. Any question that you have about brewing kombucha can be found in this book. This book will be linked down below. It definitely will help you if you are new to the world of kombucha. Okay, so here we have two separate vessels. You want to make sure that your vessels are ready before you begin. The thing that you absolutely are going to need, you don't really need this if you're starting right away, but you are going to need one of those little SCOBY things and some starter liquid to begin a new batch. Otherwise, you're not making kombucha, you're just making rotten tea. You want to clean out, this is a gallon glass jar. You want to use glass. And then you're going to need a SCOBY either from a friend. I would stay away from, buying it on the internet, but it's an option. And if you need a starter liquid, you can use like regular old kombucha, like just plain kombucha. That's what I did to start this batch. Anyway, this is over about a year of SCOBY growth. What you want to do when you get a vessel like this, you want to clean it out with a very gentle cleanser, or I think it's okay to use vinegar. You might want to double check. There are some conflicting arguments there. You don't want to use like tough antibacterial soap because this is bacteria, and we need the bacteria in order to make the kombucha. So we don't want to kill that. This is its hole right here. So you want to store it out of the sunlight because sunlight also kills bacteria. Again, this is bacteria. This is important. I don't even know if you can see it, but you see these little stringy things like underneath? That is the yeast. So we've got bacteria and we have the yeast, which is the B and the Y of the SCOBY. And I said I wasn't going to explain what a SCOBY is, but it's like a really cool science project when it comes right down to it. We're going to put this on pause. We have our vessel, we have our SCOBY. This is like the SCOBY hotel where they all live. So you need, once you start brewing and you start gathering SCOBYs, you can have them all hang out in the hotel together and party. You're gonna want at least two. If you have just one, plus a SCOBY, plus some starter liquid, you'll be good for like a couple of months. We are gonna make the tea. Boom! This is the ratchet box of tea that we have. You can buy 100 tea bags for like not that much money at like any CVS. So we need essentially tea bags, water, and sugar to make the tea. What I will say is that you need caffeinated tea, so do not get the decaf, and you're gonna need a cup of sugar. Keep in mind that the caffeine in the tea is not really gonna be in the kombucha, it's more for these guys. These guys need caffeine and they also need sugar to survive. So the sugar that you put in, it's gonna seem like a lot, like a whole cup of sugar goes in to one of these. However, that sugar is food for the bacteria. So don't skimp on the sugar or else you're going to kill your SCOBY, and don't skip on the caffeine because you'll also kill your SCOBY. So if you want your SCOBY to be healthy and if you want this experiment to work, you need black tea with caffeine and you need a full cup of sugar. I'm putting approximately 32 ounces or 1 liter or 1,000 milliliters of water into this pot to boil so that we can make our tea. So instead of like boiling a gallon of water, putting in tea, letting it steep, having it cool down to room temperature, it's so much easier to make a tea concentrate so that it's super strong and then dilute it with the rest of the water. We're taking about a third of a gallon, whatever a liter is of a gallon, and we are gonna boil it. We're gonna put around four or five tea bags into it and let it steep for about 10 minutes. We are going to then take the tea bags out and add the sugar, mix it up a little bit, get it all nice and sweet and nasty, and then we're gonna put it in the gallon, fill it up with cold water so that it'll be around room temperature, and then we're gonna put in like the final touches, which is the SCOBY and the starter liquid, like on top. So that's gonna be like the end goal. If you're doing this and like you've already made kombucha and you're replenishing it, don't forget when you take the SCOBY out of the thing to also take out at least a cup of starter liquid or liquid from the previous batch before you go further in the process, so that you can start brewing your other batch, because it's continuous. Like, you don't need a fresh SCOBY every time. Your SCOBY keeps growing, which is why I have like 1,000 of them in my little hotel over there. I'll just show you the process. We have our sugar ready, but we're not going to use that yet. And we have our tea bags ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all of these inside the boiling water, and we're going to let that sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. Like I said, we want this bitch to be strong. We want this tea to be super strong because we're gonna dilute it a little bit later, so we're not worried about the taste here. While that is steeping, we're gonna go over here and we're gonna rescue one SCOBY and get some starter liquid for our first batch. We're gonna wanna handle these things with clean hands. Try not to use utensils because they have like other things that could like contaminate it. So I like to just wash my hands with very, very gentle soap. Try not to use antibacterial soap because, again, this is bacteria. We don't want antibacterial stuff coming into contact with the bacteria. See what I'm saying? I'm gonna sort of like try to separate some of this so that we have like a baby SCOBY to use in our mixture, and we're also gonna get about a cup of this mixture. This is very, very acidic. Like, this is basically vinegar, and it's probably alcoholic at this point. Yes, there are trace amounts of caffeine. There are also gonna be trace amounts of alcohol in it because you're fermenting something, and alcohol is a natural product that happens from the fermentation process. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, somebody who's under the age of 21 can go into a store and buy kombucha. Like, it's not an alcoholic beverage. There are trace amounts in it, yes, but not enough to get you drunk. Like, I wouldn't want to drink like 5 kombuchas and get a little tipsy. That does not sound like a good time. It sounds like a stomach ache. Even though it's a probiotic and it's good for you, it just doesn't sound like a fun time. Let's get our SCOBY and our starter liquid as our tea is steeping. All right, I'm having a time trying to get this thing to focus. Oh god, this feels totally nasty. It looks like a jellyfish. Like, oh god. Oh god. I thought this would be easier, honestly, because it looks like it's all in layers, but you know what? We're just gonna use this whole thing. Put it into a bowl. It's okay if you fold it. It's not gonna die if you fold it. You will also notice that I put a towel down. You're dealing with liquids, and I've already spilled a bunch of crap all over this towel, so I highly recommend using a towel, especially when we get into the flavoring process. So at this juncture, we now have our very aesthetic SCOBY floating around in our starter liquid. So this is going to be basically our new batch of kombucha. We are now done with this SCOBY hotel. You'll see like hipsters that want to be aesthetic put cheesecloth over the top. You do not want to put cheesecloth over the top because you know what fruity, vinegary, fermented things attract? Fruit flies. So we don't want fruit flies to be in our kombucha. We want them to stay out of the kitchen. But chances are you're gonna have like a couple of fruit flies hanging about if you have fruit flies in your house. This piece of cloth we're gonna use on our new kombucha, so I'm just gonna kind of put this over the top so that no bugs get into the starter liquid. And then I'm going to put this, which is an old t-shirt, back onto the SCOBY hotel. I'm going to attach it with a rubber band, and then we're going to put it back in its little cubby. So you want to make sure this is secure, and we don't want to put a cover on top because air still needs to get in to make sure that like the SCOBY is kept alive. Do not skimp on the sugar because we don't want to starve our SCOBY and have it die, because nobody wants to have a SCOBY ghost come and haunt them. I'm just using regular Domino sugar. You don't have to get fancy with the sugar. In fact, it's better if you don't get fancy with the sugar, because this stuff breaks down a whole lot easier in the kombucha than like fancy sugar does. So just keep that in mind. Now it's time to add the tea concentrate into our gallon and then add some water. Now listen, almost every kombucha person will tell you not to use tap water, use filtered water, use purified water. I have been making kombucha for a little over a year now. I have always used tap water and nothing terrible has happened. So, proceed with caution, but nothing bad has ever happened to me in terms of tap water and making a good kombucha. Also, it's good to let this like hang out for a while, because you don't want to like dump boiling hot water into a glass container, because it might explode. Oh yeah, perfect pour, a perfect pour. I am so glad that that went as well as it did. I don't think I've ever done that. Alright, don't mind the mugs, the dirty mugs. So I'm going to fill it about up to here with water that is colder than this to try to neutralize the temperature. Now, if your goal was to just make sweet tea, you can stop right now because you're done. But we're here for kombucha. We clicked on the kombucha video. Whoop! Hello, SCOBY. We're going to put this and the starter liquid into our vessel. So now we're done. We've got fresh tea. We've got our happy little SCOBY. It's covered, no bugs can get in, but air can still get in. The rest of the process happens if we just leave it alone. So I'm going to put it back in its little cubby, and we're going to check back in a week to see what it looks like. If this is your first time making kombucha, it can be really tempting to like check on it all the time. But don't worry about it. Just leave it. Forget about it. Maybe set a reminder on your phone so that you don't actually forget about it. After maybe like 5 days, it can be really useful. If you have like one of those, if you have one of these things, after 5 days you can like, you know, stick this in, get a little bit, put it in a cup, maybe put an ice cube in it or whatever, and just taste it just to see what it tastes like. You might like kombucha that's a little sweeter, you might like it a little more tart. It's kind of up to you. I like mine more on the tart side, because sometimes if it's too sweet, it just means that it needs some more time to ferment. So we want it to be fermented, we just don't want it to like over ferment. So that's why, like, if you're curious, if this is your first time ever making kombucha, after 5 days give it a little test, and if you find that it's sweet, give it a couple more days and then try it again. It does get kind of warm in here, and whenever it's warm, the bacteria and the yeast kind of kick into overdrive, and they go crazy. They like warmer temperatures. They're very active in warmer temperatures. Like, don't put it in the fridge ever, because if it's too cold, then the SCOBY will just go to sleep and become dormant, and then you might have issues like mold or whatever. But the starter liquid in this tea is very acidic. The SCOBY is alive and doing its thing, so as long as those things are all balanced, then you won't have any mold issues. If your SCOBY looks weird, like if you get brown spots on your SCOBY and you're not used to it, don't worry about it. It's only if you're seeing mold like green. Green, you want to get rid of the whole batch and just like start over. But yeah, that's how you start making kombucha. So now we just wait 5 to 7 days and see what happens. Hey guys, so this video is getting kind of long. I just edited it, so I think that I'm going to do a second video with the taste test, the final product, and the bottling and flavoring it all in one second video. Click the bell so that you know when I upload that one. Thank you, like and subscribe, and let me know below in the comments if you like kombucha and if you've ever made your own kombucha.